that the National Assembly received as the President delivered the State of the Nation address, which is part of the business that the members are considering. The measures taken, the annual report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of the national values and principles of governance. A look at some of the national values and principles of governance. This is under Article 10, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution. Some of the national values and principles of governance include patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy, and participation of the people, human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusiveness, equality, human rights, non-discrimination and protection of the marginalized, good governance, integrity, transparency, and accountability, as well as sustainable development. These are the tenets that form the national values and principles of governance as provided for in the Constitution. As I had indicated earlier, this is not the first report with regards to that, but the 11th report. The first report was in 2014, and the government has continued to mainstream, promote, and report on the national values and principles of governance as required by the Constitution. And this has ensured that national values and principles of governance continue to remain the foundation of the national vision, or rather the country's national vision, define our identity as a nation and impact on our socio-economic and political development. And this report now is a comprehensive scorecard on how government has applied public resources vis-a-vis the provisions of Article 10 of the Constitution. And this report is therefore an assessment of the status of realization of the constitutional provisions that are outlined in the Article 4(2) of the Constitution, also Article 10(1) of the Constitution, Article 10(2) of the Constitution, Article 4, Sub-Article 2 provides that the Republic of Kenya shall be a multi-party democratic state founded on the national values and principles of governance. Article 10(1) provides that the national values bind all state organs, state officers, public officers, and all persons whenever they apply or interpret the Constitution, enact, apply, or interpret any law, or make or implement public policy decisions. So these are just but part of the national values that are entrenched in this particular report with regards on how the government has been able to implement and abide by the provisions of the Constitution. If you're just joining us, is that the House is about to commence its business. The prayer has been said, the chair has been taken, but you can clearly see that the House does not have enough members for it to be able to be deemed to have achieved that quorum. At least 50 members should be seated. The members that I can see from this angle are around 5 or 6. We need about 50. This is as provided for in the House Standing Order, but the House rules also provide that at the lapse of the 10 minutes, remember the quorum bell currently is for 10 minutes, to give room for the members to be able to make their way into the chambers. At the lapse of the 10 minutes, There will be a further 5-minute quorum bell. At the lapse of those 5 minutes, if the quorum has not been achieved, then the Speaker may adjourn the House until the next sitting, which if that may be the case, then the next sitting will be this afternoon at 2:30. But we are hoping that that quorum is achieved. Remember, this is a sitting that the House agreed on through a resolution for it to be able to conclude on matters that are still pending before the House and which need to be concluded or dispensed with before the House proceeds on the long recess. That is from the 6th of December. And what we are expecting to see is that members should be making their way into the chambers to allow the House attain that required quorum for the House to be able to commence its business. Part of the business that the members are continuing to transact is a consideration on the State of the Nation address speech that was delivered in Parliament by the President of the Republic of Kenya. Today will be marking day 3. Debate on that particular address, as provided for, should be concluded within 4 days. The debate began in yesterday's afternoon sitting.
Proceed. First order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Deputy Majority Whip.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, November 26, 2024, morning sitting. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statement for the years ended 30th June 2021, 30th June 2022, and 30th June 2023, and the certificates therein in respect of Kenya High School, number 2, Sabuleni Secondary School, number 3, Waji Girls Secondary School, number 4, Kimunyu Secondary School, number 5, Gadhurini Secondary School, number 6, Kahugini Boys High School, number 7, Nakel Secondary School, number 8, Baringo High School, number 9, Mangu High School, number 10, JG Kereni Boys Secondary School, number 11, Osen Girls High School, number 12, Enomotasaini Girls Secondary School, number 13, Isinya Boys Secondary School, and number 14, Machakos School. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to lay.
Okay, Chairperson for the Departmental Committee on Health, Honorable Kosa. The mic is on.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 26 November 2024, report of the Departmental Committee on Health on the budget implementation for financial year 2023-2024 for the following state departments. 1, for 1082, State Department for Medical Services, and 2, for 1083, State Department for Public Health and Professional Standards.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Pukosa again, Health Committee.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts a report of the Departmental Committee on Health on the budget implementation for financial year 2023-2024 for the following state departments laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 26 November 2024. 1, for 1082, the State Department for Medical Services, and 2, for 1083, the State Department for Public Health and Professional Standards.
Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Chairperson for the Committee of Lands. A statement had been requested. Lunga Lunga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 44-2C, I rise to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Land regarding the implementation of a court order by the Environment and Land Court for compensation and land resettlement of the owners of Ramisi Phase 1, Block 5056, Kanana Nikabu in Kwale County. Honorable Speaker, Mkupuo Network Awareness, an nonpartisan community-based organization, represents the residents in occupation of Ramisi Phase 1, Block 5056, Kanana Nikabu in Kwale County. These residents have occupied the said land since pre-colonial times, having inherited the same land from their forefathers. In 2008, the government initiated a settlement scheme plan to formalize their occupation, which resulted in the issuance of offer letters to the residents. However, to date, no certificate of titles were issued. However, the residents were forcibly evicted and their structure demolished to facilitate occupation by MS Kwale International Sugar Company Limited, which had purportedly leased the land from the government. Honorable Speaker, the forced eviction meted out on the residents without compensation prompted the affected residents to file ELC petition number 43 of 2020 at the Environmental and Land Court in Kwale. The court ruled in favor and ordering that the government has an obligation to compensate and resettle the affected residents of the organization. The government was granted a period of 12 months to comply with the decree, which expired on 27 January 2024. Despite the lapse of the time frame, the government is yet to comply, causing undue hardship and suffering to the affected residents. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Lands on the following. 1, the measures in place by the Ministry of Lands, Public Works and Housing and Urban Development to comply with the decree of the court, considering the Mkupuo Network Awareness was to be compensated and its members resettled by 27th January 2024. Number 2, a report on the status of assessment made by the ministry to ensure all villages within Ramisi Phase 1 Block 5056 are duly concluded in the valuation report for compensation. And 3, an overview of the resettlement plan and the efforts that have been made to conduct awareness among the affected residents in their resettlements. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Chairperson for the Committee on Lands. How long will it take? Any member from the Lands Committee or Vice Chairperson? I think I'd leave it to you, Deputy Majority Whip.
Noted, Honorable Speaker, and they will give the report once we resume. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 8, motion. Debate on the President's address, day 3.
The Honorable Member for Gilgil, Honorable Martha Wangari.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also record my thanks to the State of the Nation address by the President. And Madam Speaker, because I know we have limited time, I'll pick a few issues. That we are now on our second day, yes, 5 minutes, that we are on our second day of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Allow me to start with that, Madam Speaker. And I want to laud the President because he pronounced himself clearly, even his meeting with women leaders, Madam Speaker, and committing even resources to fight this menace, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it cannot be normal that in the last 3 months, we have about 97 women who have been killed, mostly by intimate partners, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that means every month we have lost 30 women to gender-based violence, Madam Speaker. And even today, we have woken up to a woman being raped and stabbed in Murang'a. We have woken up yesterday to another one in Nakuru, another every in Laikipia. It cannot be normal, Madam Speaker. And I think the disconnect we are having right now is that the President pronounces himself, but the people supposed to take action are sleeping on the job. Madam Speaker, we have not had a statement from the Interior Ministry, even today, condemning these incidences, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, last year, a girl in my constituency, Jasmine Joki, from Kasambara village in Barok, was raped and killed brutally. A 12-year-old was raped and killed in broad daylight, Madam Speaker, as she left school. Madam Speaker, that was September 12th, 2023. Suspects were arrested, DNA was harvested. It took 6 months to actually hear of that DNA again. Why? It was taken to Kisumu because we don't have any testing center in Nakuru. We don't have a testing center in Eldoret. We don't have testing centers in so many of these counties, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Interior will boast and say, we have spent billions in buying equipment to modernize our fighting equipment, Madam Speaker. Why is it so hard to spare small shillings to buy reagents that we wait for from South Africa to test for DNA to be able to tell whether someone has committed a rape or a defilement, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, why? Because it is not very appealing, because it doesn't have money. There is not much money people can eat from that, Madam Speaker, and it does not have the interest of the nation. Madam Speaker, we have to change this, and we have to get to a point where every county can be able to process DNA samples to enable, to ensure that we have these culprits behind doors, behind bars, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that case really pained me, because when you get a culprit who gets arrested, then tomorrow they are out on bail of 200, of 50,000, of 100,000, they go back to the families and taunt them. They actually tell them, you can do nothing to me, Madam Speaker. And I know people have said women should walk away, but how many are able to do that? Because others follow them, even when they try to walk away from relationships, Madam Speaker. And I say that as someone who has walked away from one which was violent, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, they will follow you, they will tap your phone, they will actually call your friends, they will threaten you. And if you don't have the financial independence, you are not able to walk away. So I would actually say that we are not doing well. We must loop in the judiciary. This issue of just giving them bail and they walk is another problem, Madam Speaker. You go to the police, gender desk are mere desks. Actually, I think they even moved the desks from the police, Madam Speaker, because the idea was to give women a safe place to actually report these issues when they happen. And it is not happening. The judiciary must have a fast lane to actually be able to curb the issue of gender-based violence. And that also applies to boys and men, Madam Speaker, that we also have safe spaces where they can report and talk about it, because the stigma is quite huge and it is associated by reporting any abuse meted on men or boys. Madam Speaker, that for me stood out. The other issue, Madam Speaker, is of course the economic growth. I hope that we can be able to translate these to the pockets of Kenyans so that they can feel what the president is talking about and not just percentages. That way we'll be able to feel, and will not need to say, even on the newspapers, we'll be able to feel and see members doing well and the public thriving, Madam Speaker. I thank you for that opportunity.
The Honorable John Mutunga, member for Tigania.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to make a few comments on the presidential address. Honorable Speaker, this address comes subject to Article 132(1)(c), which basically articulates measures towards realization of national values, principles of governance in this country. Honorable Speaker, these are the values that are clearly outlined in Article 10 of the Constitution. And we can put them into 4 key clusters, one being the loyalty to the Republic, the second on promotion and protection of the rights of individuals, the third one as integrity, and the fourth one as development. Honorable Speaker, I would like to pick a few values and ask certain questions that Kenyans, on the extent to which Kenyans attest to these values. But just the one, Honorable Speaker, in my understanding, is commitment to the nation's progress and sovereignty. The extent to which we commit ourselves is wanting, Honorable Speaker. Upholding sovereignty is important so that we balance the freedoms and also the freedoms with public policy. Honorable Speaker, to what extent do individuals within this particular country aligned to patriotism? How much progress have we made as a country? When a Kenyan is given an opportunity to express themselves, to what extent do we as Kenyans really talk about this country as our home and a place that we would like to live in? When you look at the media, to what extent is the media patriotic? Because most of the time you realize that they will criticize and not necessarily critique. Honorable Speaker, the other issue is that the report itself cautions extensively on the role of the rule of law and constitutionalism. Honorable Speaker, the national unity issue, to my understanding, is promoting cohesion and inclusivity. When we group ourselves along ethnic lines, are we actually expressing nationalism? Is that national unity? The reality is that to the large extent, Kenya is segmented into ethnic communities. How do we interpret national unity when we allow vernacular radios to take prominence in this particular country? And when any of us is aggrieved, you turn to the vernacular radio to try and express yourself. Honorable Speaker, that's an issue we need to deal with as a country. We need to promote national unity, and the report addresses this particular issue at large. Sharing and the devolution of powers with respect to devolution itself. Equitable resource distribution has to do with reaching the people. How much has devolution been able to do this? Out of the 47 counties as devolved units, and the resources being sent to these devolved units, Honorable Speaker, we need to see a lot more of development so that we can say Kenya has really done the right thing in the terms of terms of addressing the issues of devolution. Honorable Speaker, when you look at the human dignity, the respect and the protection of every individual's rights and obligations, in this particular respect, Honorable Speaker, the immediate previous speaker has, honorable member, has attested to the gender-based violence and especially femicide, which the report covers extensively. Everyone deserves the right, not just the right to live in this country, right to engage without any form of intimidation, without any form of discrimination. Honorable Speaker, there should be no, we should be, as Kenyans, there should be no one who is superior before the other as a country, as a people living together. We should always respect one another so that we can also be respected outside in this country. When you look at the issues of equity, which has to do with the fair distribution of resources, particularly to the marginalized groups, this country has made a lot of effort. And the report covers quite extensively on the effort that the government has done in consideration of the effort of ensuring that everyone is taken care of. Projects like the affordable housing program, which is distributed across the country, it has the constituency focus, which means every constituency is supposed to get their share. The ICT hubs are spread across the country, the NGCDF, the TVET, and others. Universities are now county-based. So it means every county it has an opportunity to have its own university. So equity is being exercised, and this is very well articulated in the report. On our Speaker, social justice, about equal opportunities. In this country, pursuit for social justice has been terribly misinterpreted, and the report is very particular on Article 27, the misinterpretation of Article 27, where picketing is misinterpreted to mean violence, which is not true. Inclusivity, on our Speaker, the provisions on inclusivity have also been articulated within this particular report.
You can finish your sentence.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Let me conclude by saying that equality has also been looked into very, very carefully in this particular report. We have spread projects across the country, looking at different areas to make sure that every part of this country is developing. We have looked at the employment and labor migration, which has also assisted people across the scope, and the Equalization Fund, which has also looked at the areas that actually were behind others in terms of development. And therefore, this report articulates exactly what's happening in this country and the progress that we're making. Among others, the state of the economy has also been clearly articulated, as well as the state of food and nutrition and the cancellation of the contentious Adani contract. Thank you very much.
Okay. The Honorable Member for Laikipia West, Wachira Karani.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also add my voice to this speech by His Excellency the President. I will start by saying there are so many things that His Excellency the President talked about, but because of limitation of time, I will touch on a few. And I will say, we Kenyans, we have a funny way of looking at things. Whenever a new idea comes, we are used to opposing the new ideas without, first of all, giving it an opportunity. I remember in the year 2002, Madam Speaker, when the third president of this republic, the late Mwai Kibaki, came into power. He introduced through his minister then, Honorable John Michoki, the late, transport mode where a Nissan, a microbus, will be carrying 14 passengers. Before then, people are used to microbuses carrying even up to that passengers. Now, people, I remember, majority of Kenyans opposed it. They were told the matatus will be driving at 80 kilometers per hour. Because they used to drive at over 150, they opposed it. They were told we were going to use safety belts. Kenyans opposed it. But when eventually the third president stood firm on it through his minister, today every Kenyan enjoys it. So even now, we are in a similar situation. When the president took over the reign of this country in 2022, Madam Speaker, he found the country was in very big loans. We had almost reached the ceiling for our loans obligations. The Kenyans complained that they are being taxed very highly, so there was no room for more taxation. So the president turned it to public-private partnership, and the Kenyans opposed. Now my question is, what do you expect him to do and his government? So we have to be lenient. I know I've done my research, Madam Speaker. I wanted to know, and I was very impressed when the president terminated the contracts for Adani, both in Kentraco and Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. I was very, very concerned. I tried to do my research to know why the Kenyans were against the Adani. And I found out Kenyans did not have a problem with Adani. What the Kenyans had problem with is the transparency that was used in getting those contracts. So in the future, if this country, my proposal is, if this country is going to enter into public-private partnership, That should be transparent. It should not be a single sourcing. We should give many organizations opportunity to bid for them, and then we get the most considerate figures. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Tharaka, Honorable George Murugara.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm also happy to get the opportunity to make a contribution as regards the President's speech during the auspicious occasion. Although I was away from the country that particular time, I was actually able to listen to the speech from Cape Town, and I must commend His Excellency the President because he actually tried to give the picture of the country as it is, and as we progress with all the matters that should now be considered towards making our country move forward and in a better way. First and foremost, the President highlighted several laws that are to be enacted for purposes of good governance in the country. I'm happy to report that some of those laws actually have already been considered by this House through the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. And what is outstanding, what is outstanding and what he spoke to is the Conflict of Interest Bill. This is a bill of the National Assembly that was passed here some time ago. It was then taken to the Senate, where several amendments were reintroduced, and eventually, since this House rejected those amendments, we have had to have a mediation. I confirm to this House that the mediation committee was established and actually started sittings yesterday, and we do undertake that by the close of business this week, we should have a mediated version of the Conflict of Interest Bill now coming back to the House for passing. The President also highlighted on case tracking systems and e-filing for the judiciary, and in fact lauded the judiciary as the leader in technology in the government. These are very important steps the judiciary has taken to ensure that parties are informed of their cases in time and that the filing is done timelessly. The net effect is that delivery of services in the judiciary is actually improving and has continued to improve, as a result of which we now have more cases being determined on an annual basis. Madam Speaker, you actually headed this when you were in the judiciary. The ICT system that was introduced at that time is actually what is being improved on, and we must also laud you for that. We again had a presentation from the President regarding the Bill of Rights, which is also very important because of late we have had issues with what is being termed as abductions, forced disappearances. We have also had what they are calling extrajudicial killings. And we must, as advocates of human rights, condemn anything that is unlawful, which is being done by anyone from whatever quarter. We have always said as a country, we abide by the rule of law, and everybody is bound by the laws we have in the country, including the Constitution, the statutes, and the regulations made thereunder. If there are to be arrests by the police, those arrests have to be within the confines of the law. Any other criminal that goes on to abuse the law must be brought to book in a manner that is prescribed. We move this way, our country will continue to shine in the continent as one that is strictly governed by the rule of law. The President actually also highlighted on other aspects of life, including the CBC, where there have been questions as regards the preparedness of the country towards this. It's a new education system introduced. We know for sure it has teething problems. It also has shortage of infrastructure, but the country is moving towards this through our own CDF here and allocations from the ministry to ensure that the infrastructure is established, teachers are employed, and our children continue to get best quality education. The president talked about the economy, which is actually improving, which is actually growing, including stabilizing our shilling. We are happy to see that we are now competitive when it comes to hard currencies, and our shilling is actually doing well. We are happy to note that inflation rates have gone down, evidence that our shilling is becoming stronger and stronger every day, and this is good for the country. Interest rates have gone down, which means we are able to borrow more money and bring this money into circulation in the country for purposes of growth. There was a mention of our agriculture, where we are boosting production. And again here, we must laud the policies which appeared unpopular in the first place, but which now have led to a boost in production, such that our silos are actually almost full in terms of food reserves. We have put in place measures to ensure that sugar production is improved, coffee production is actually highlighted, and mostly production of milk through dairy farming. The president emphasized that we actually need to put all the resources in the agricultural sector to ensure we boost our production for the sake of the country. We had universal health care, Taifa Care, where again we have the SHA and the SHIF, which are giving Kenyans nightmares. But from today, as we read in the press, things are now beginning to work. We said actually this was going to last 2-3 months, and soon all the systems will be in place, and every Kenyan will actually be able to get health care free. And in as much as Kenyans are complaining about the taxation on the universal health care and on the housing levy, we confirmed to the House that the laws that are just about to be introduced here, some of them are to ensure that Kenyans are taken care of, taxation is reduced, as a result of which the burden which was resting on Kenyans is actually eased. And as I conclude, there was a discussion on corruption, which is a vice that is eating into the flame of the country. What EACC now has actually a new CEO, because the one who was there has completed his term. We may not be able to discuss a lot about the new CEO, who is going to be subject to proceedings in the House, and those proceedings are not here at all. But the high time it gets a new CEO, and corruption, the vice that is eating to the flesh of the country, continues to be fought. We know very well that it is difficult to fight corruption because corruption fights back, but we must, under all circumstances, ensure that this vice is actually eradicated. The country cannot develop unless we do not have corrupt elements, corrupt practices, and the practices that are injurious to the welfare and the well-being of the country. All in all, the president gave a balanced speech, made assurances that it's not pledges that are being made, but now slowly and slowly it is becoming a reality that some of the promises that were made in the plan are actually being actualized. With those remarks, I do wish to rest my comments there. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Beatrice Ilachi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to give thanks to the address of His Excellency the President, and to really say that this was one address that was able to give the country a new face, and to tell the country that we are